Welcome back to Brazil Crypto Report. Today we're joined by Nicole Dyskant, who's one of Brazil's top capital markets lawyers. We talk about her work with Fireblocks, the digital real, and new regulations being drafted by the central bank. Great. So we're here today with Nicky Dyskant. Nicky, it's so great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Amazing. Yeah, long time coming. It took us a while to get this scheduled, but I'm so glad we were able to pull it off. So to start off, why don't you just give us a bit of a background on yourself personally and professionally and how you got into crypto, Web3, digital assets?
Sure. My pleasure. So I'm a trained capital markets and financial lawyer. So I've been practicing law for over 20 years, or maybe a little more. And I would say in the last 3 years, or maybe a little longer than this, I've been involved in the crypto space and digital assets. I first started looking to this amazing world with Hashdex in the beginning of its formation. Marcelo Sampaio, the co-founder and CEO, was kind enough to invite me to be co-founder back then. And I was very involved with my own software that I co-founded called Complete Asset, which is the Tradify and for investment managers, RegTech. And I was very focused into that, but I did love the idea to be involved with digital assets. And I started to be working as a lawyer and advisor for them in the beginning. So since 2018, I've been working with Hashdex as an advisor. And then I became full-time employee in 21. I stayed I think a bit over 1.5 years as their head of legal and compliance. So that was when I really went in deep into crypto and learned, pretty much, I wouldn't say everything that I know because this is so fast. And today I've been 6 months out of this company and working with a lot of other stuff. So yeah, it was like a mix, but I'm very grateful to Hashdex to put me in this amazing world. So I ended up leaving the company in December last year and became advisor again. So kind of a 360 round path back to when I started, what I did in the beginning, because I wanted to see, Aaron, more verticals than only, the capital market and an investment side of the blockchain, which pretty much the assets itself. So I started to be interested in learning more about tokenization and all the real assets, capabilities to be tokenized, and also the real digital. So I started advising Fireblocks, the global infrastructure company, right? I think everyone in this space knows about Fireblocks. And I'm very happy to be with the company because, it's an amazing company culture-wise, and also their product. I'm super fan. So I started to pitch Fireblocks to Hashdex back when I figured out, the differences between code and warm wallet and all the different types of products that Fireblocks had. So I became a fan of the company even before starting to working with them closely. So again, we are able to support not only in the MPC technology, which is the traditional product they started to offering in Brazil, but also there's a CBDC project and stable coins and other payments solutions too. So today is a pretty complete, and there are a broad spectrum of products and services that Fireblocks is offering down here. And I'm being involved with all of them, with the clients, community, and also the regulatory side, that it's very important also to kind of teach the client and try to help them while they are starting using this crypto and blockchain products. I'm specifically talking about Tradify, all these financial institutions that are coming into the space, okay? So that's the main thing I've been involved today. And also I've been advising, I'm in the regulatory and compliance committee for QR Vórtx tokenization firm, which is a firm that is in the regulatory sandbox from CVM, mostly tokenizing securities, bonds, corporate bonds, and fund quotes, fund shares, closed-ended funds. So it's specific securities that they have authorization to issue and negotiate and distribute into the regulatory sandbox. And the last firm I'm advising right now is the 2TM, which is the holding company for Mercado Bitcoin, the largest crypto exchange in Brazil. So we are also involved in different verticals with them for the VASP controls and the VASP rule-making process, you know, and also for the tokens, fixed income tokens platform. There are also some rules and CVM staff orientations come into this space. So as you can see, it's a lot of different verticals, kind of mix it up in some point because they're all into this digital assets framework, but a lot of different stuff going on and very interesting, all of them.
Yeah, I'm amazed that you have any free time in addition to all those projects you're working on. That's pretty incredible. Very
job to talk to the community, so I have to make time for that, right? So it's actually
well, I appreciate you making time for me in the midst of all of in the Brazil Crypto Report audience here in the midst of all of that. So, so maybe let's start with your work with Fireblocks in particular. And yeah, I know I did have Georgie on the podcast a few months ago. He kind of gave us a bit of a rundown of Fireblocks' work in Brazil and kind of, you know, his role as head of business development. But would love to kind of tap into maybe a bit more of what you're working on, what your role is with Fireblocks, and particularly on more of like the regulatory side. Obviously, as a capital markets attorney by background, and having been engaged in the Brazilian regulatory process for 2 decades now on these types of issues. So I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on like, we just learn more about what you're working on that front, and then also, I saw obviously we had the big announcement a couple weeks ago, the new bank announcement. Maybe just talk a bit more about like, maybe what does that announcement entail, or what do you got? What does that partnership look like? And then what other types of partners do you maybe have in the pipeline, or that you're potentially working with in the Brazil community?
Right. Yeah. Listen, so it's a very sweet, nice moment to be working with Fireblocks because, we are close to this new moment of the regulation. And because of this being so close to become true, we have a regulated market in Brazil. It's attracting a lot of financial institutions and banks and payment institutions to work closely with blockchain and start navigating this system, so in this industry. So I would say pretty much all of the relevant institutions are studying testing, trying to work in a way. And it's very new to everyone, especially to them. So it's very likely that they need support, in terms of products, consulting work, to try to help them to start navigating this new world. And in terms of everything, compliance, product, distribution, and technological tools, right? So I think Fireblocks realized that Brazil, it's becoming huge, not only because of its size and the high adoption of crypto. As you know, we have a high level of adoption. Last time I think we were between the 5th position and the 7th position in chain analysis adoption index in the world. So I mean, it's and we are becoming a hub for Americas, especially with all this movement about firms leaving the U.S. and the U.S. becoming kind of bad territory and insecure territory for crypto firms. So I think Brazil is benefiting for this facts. Second of all, we do have very good and pro-innovation regulators, both Brazilian Central Bank regulators and the CVM. in terms of their posture, in terms of their openness to talk to the market and to partner with the market and start. Of course, we have thresholds, we have legal mandates they have to abide, and there are some limits that even the regulators have to follow. For example, before having the law, we had a problem because without a law, the Brazilian Central Bank wouldn't be appointed as the regulator for the VASPs, and CVM had its mandate only in securities, which still true. So we have to navigate through this bigger framework. But that being said, they could have like a bad or a good posture in terms of regulating and talking to the market how they can, and they're having the best amazing work they can. So again, I think Fireblocks and other players could read into that and say that together with what I've just said about Brazil being this relevant in the industry, that is a very good whole picture to be at. So let's work with the financial institutions that are very well positioned already in terms of compliance, in terms of process. It's very different than, for instance, trying to work with crypto native firms that will have to adopt everything in terms of compliance, governance, legal, to be able to be registered, right? So I think our main focus right now is there's institutional firms and financial institutions to be able to provide technology custody service for them, tools. We are trying to position ourselves as a relevant service provider instead of a VASP. So we do not compete with our client. We do not interfere in the money flow. So I think my main job is, trying to help people to separate the wheat from the grass and understand what is the role of a VASP, what is the role of a tech service provider, and how we can help them in our role. So I think that's one of my, main challenges / goals. And the third one is actually help them with the clients. And I've been working for this industry for 20 years, so I do know, a lot of people in the scene, and talk to the banks and help them to translate, the mindset of a global company to how the Brazilian think about it in the business relationship. So that's another thing. And also talking to the community, to the regulators, self-regulators. I'm talking all the time with Ambima, CVM, Brazilian Central Bank, clients for strategic partnerships, and how we're going to position ourselves in this rulemaking process. I think we're going to talk more about this, but we're going to have, public consultations that we will be able to manifest ourselves in written. So we might be willing to do this together with some clients, So yeah, I think Vórtx is very well positioned now to help Brazilian firms gathering this huge global team. We have knowledge of what is happening in the whole world. So we also can help our regulators and our clients with what we are seeing abroad. That helps a lot. Also, this expertise. And of course, me helping them with my expertise from Brazil and LATAM.
Great. And maybe sticking along this theme of kind of the rulemaking process, it's been about maybe a month and a half since the central bank was kind of had the formal authorization of being formal designation of being the regulator for the industry, and that we were sort of waiting for that moment to really kick off the rulemaking process, right? And I was hoping you could maybe just explain, what does this process look like, right? For maybe explaining this for a foreign audience that's not really familiar with how Brazilian financial regulation works. How does this rulemaking process look like? What are the key issues that they are trying to tackle in the kind of this licensing framework that they're creating for VASPs? Yeah. And then maybe what does the timeline look like? What are some of the key milestones, and when do they need to actually kind of finish this and actually start opening bidding or opening the application window for companies to apply for a license?
Sure. So we have different departments within the Brazilian Central Bank, right? And the main department in charge of doing the rule is the one called DENOR. So DENOR is I think the translation would be the rulemaking department. And they will put into public consultation. They've mentioned already this, I think they published a note, like an official note from the Brazilian Central Bank, talking about public consultations. So you can listen. It's going to be more than one, which is not actually a very standard procedure for a new rule. Normally, it's only one. So I tried to understand this a little bit. I think we're going to see in a very soon, probably the first public consultation that we'll put into for the market to comment.
Sorry, can I pause you really quick there? So you think they're doing more than one public consultation just because of kind of the complexity and maybe the novelty and the newness of this? Like this isn't, there's a lot of moving pieces here that they need to get right. So they're really trying to get, the right feedback from the right stakeholders. Is that kind of why they're doing it differently here?
That's exactly my feeling, because, I think it happened in the fintech world when they started to regulate the payment arrangements. They first, before that, they were only regulating the financial institutions. So it was a new market, a new type of negotiation model, new risks. So I think it's kind of the same here. And I think it's fair to say that they are looking even further to understand the different types of assets, the different types of trading, negotiation model, custody, all the different different players, and also it's very new to them. So I think they are trying to validate all the concepts first. So when they come with the regulation and different types of VASPs, different types of probably capital requirement because of different risks. So they come in a more, with more knowledge already to come with the rules. So I think you are right. You are correct.
Great.
So in terms of time frame that you asked, I think it's fair to expect that they're gonna publish there's one or two public consultations still in the second semester of this year. So probably, within a couple of months, we'll have something. And then firms that are already operating into the system, they have at least 6 months as a temporary license, as what we call like the godfathering rights, to continue operate until they have the permanent license. Okay, so I think some point next year, after the final rule is published, we're gonna have the first entities confirmed as a temporary license, because you're gonna have to see what's the rule will come in terms of what is actually inside the godfathering rights, right? Because it's another discussion if it's only a taxpayer number, which I don't think so. I think you gotta have to show transactions in Brazilian clients, like taking, for instance, as the model like they did with the fintechs. They analyzed if the fintech was like they went through the volume of the transactions, and especially the what was coming through Brazilian channels. And there's other things that we can consider. We consider like a whole list. So I think it's going to have a case-by-case analysis from the Brazilian Central Bank. That's another department, not the DENOR. That's called the DORF, which is the authorization department. So coming back to what I was telling, so DENOR is the rulemaking department, but other departments are also interacting with them to try to come up with this capital requirements. How we're gonna, create criteria for licensing this VASP. So I think they are doing, it's very independent, each department, but I'm sure they are talking to each other and having like, as a group of work interactions, because this will affect more than one department. So again, the ORF will authorize, each of the regulatory, like the potential VASPs. And I think it's also fair to expect that in the second semester of 24, we're going to have the permanent license and the new players coming into this regulated market, right? So probably they will take around, I think, 6 months in terms of consultation, public consultation and rulemaking process, and around 6 months also to start to have actually the permanent authorizations, and especially for new entities. So I think it's fair to say that it's going to be at least 3 months to 6 months process of this. So my expectation, and again, this is personal, it's like taking into considerations past and a big process as the fintech one, that until the end of 24, we're going to have, so before Roberto Campos Neto leave his mandate, I think we're going to have both VASP regulation into place already in force, and the Drex coming as a real digital money also working, out of the pilot. So that's my expectation. Maybe I'm too optimistic, but I think it's a good expectation.
So just to kind of summarize and make sure I'm understanding correctly. So here we're here in August 2023, and right now we're in kind of this consultation period, rulemaking period, and probably maybe by the end of the year, the bank will finish with the kind of the rulemaking consultative period. The first half of next year will really be about issuing some of these temporary licenses to the firms that have been grandfathered in, or that are trying to be grandfathered in, essentially, arguing that, look, we were already operating here, we should be allowed to continue to operate because we were already here. And what you're saying is that there's essentially there's going to need to be a test of some sort to determine who is like legitimately operating here versus who just had a company set up but wasn't actually doing anything.
Yeah.
And then for the back half of
company set up, because it's not important. Before the decree, it has to be it should be already working in Brazil. So if I set up a company right now and try to prove to the Brazilian Central Bank, probably they will say it was too late. Okay,
got it.
Yeah.
And then more toward the second half of next year, 2024, will be when you start seeing companies beginning to actually apply for and receive actual permanent VASP licenses. Essentially, that seems fairly realistic, I suppose.
What do you think? You think it's too optimistic?
I mean, I just say any provision, any estimation like this involving government, I usually just prolong by twice as long as you think it's going to take. But I mean, maybe. But
let's put it this way: so we push them. Our job, as industry players, is to push them. Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to have opportunity also to be engaged in different parts. So again, when they publish the consultation, they will expect players like us, anyone. You don't have to be regulated to submit your thoughts. So I think it's more than welcome, and I think we should participate as association. So now Fireblocks is into a big crypto, and also as individuals, because it's very important for them in this process.
Great. And maybe I'd like to also ask a bit about your experience working with the central bank. I assume you've worked with the central bank on similar issues, over the course of your career. And I think one of the exciting things about the Brazilian central bank in this particular context is that there does seem to be a real strong competency. There seems to be, these are people that have really they've really dug in, they've really understand the technology, and they're I mean, I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard that Roberto Campos Neto was mining Bitcoin, a long time ago.
I don't know.
I don't know if that's true or not. Someone told me that. I think it was on a podcast episode a few episodes ago, but I don't know if it's true or not. But anyway, but I would just like your thoughts on, as far as your dialogue with the central, with these various agencies or with these divisions within the central bank on these topics. How have you found their openness toward, their, I guess, A, their understanding of these issues and the technology, and also B, their openness to really learn from the private sector and folks such as yourself, just given how dynamic this industry is and how things are kind of changing, every other day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, true. Well, my whole life I've been engaging with regulators, and so until my first 10 years of career, I worked for a broker dealer called Agora that was acquired by Bradesco Bank. So the first 10 years of my career, every move we made, we had to approve with the Brazilian Central Bank. And that was with the ORF, this authorization and licensing department. So, and, you know, I'm talking about every capital increase, change of directors, of course, the M&As and everything. So, and also in the CVM side, I've been working with staff for institutional investors, you know, board of directors, all capacities that you can imagine. And later on, I worked with Marcelo Trindade. There was another Brazilian CVM chairman, and started my career with Marcelo Barbosa that just left the government. So my whole career, more than 20 years, dealing with them. And I can tell you that I'm very, very, like 100% proud of their technical capacities, how the way they don't, you know, involve with particulars in a way they shouldn't, but only, you know, to learn and of course to supervise. So it's very, very, both of them are very, you know, like very technical, and I'd never had any bad experience dealing with these people for this whole time that I've told you. So, and today I think it's the same. So they are doing now I'm talking of Brazilian Central Bank, a very hard homework to understand this whole new market. And I'm only like amazed how you said, like, probably Roberto Campos mined his own Bitcoin. I don't know about that. But if you talk to them, probably they will teach you things that you don't know about your own stuff. So they are digging very hard. It's true. I mean, sometimes I talk to people that they kind of like amaze me how they're understanding about this, which is, you know, not simple, especially if you are sat in a chair of regulator and you don't put your hands into stuff. So it's very nice. So they are doing this, you know, studies and meetings with players since I would say before they started actually preparing the rule. But probably because they spoke to so many people and so many different stakeholders, from a bank to a crypto native firm, they're having a whole wide, you know, different answers for one topic. And I'm talking about segregation of assets. I'm talking about custody, you know, the type of licensing. So I think one of the reasons they are actually wanting to do this in a more, you know, two-folded process, you know, maybe more than one public consultation, it's because they are talking with a lot of people, and because they're talking with a lot of people, it also becomes difficult to conciliate all the interests and answers.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, there's just, but it does seem that they've really done some of their homework and just really trying to dialogue with different, you know, using the tech and, you know, dialoguing with the people that are building the tech and that kind of thing. I'd like to switch gears here a little bit and talk about the digital real, or Drex as it's now known. It's going to probably take a little while to start calling it Drex instead of digital real, but it's already, even, I mean, it was 4 days ago we got the announcement. The name is kind of growing on me. When I first saw it, I was like, that's weird. But now it's like, all right, Drex. Okay. So you have two projects that you are advising that are both involved in the Drex digital rail consortia, Fireblocks. I don't know if is Fireblocks in one of the consortia, or at least your clients are in the consortia.
So yes, exactly. So we are supporting clients that are in the consortium, and we do have we do have someone very senior from Fireblocks, which is Vórtx, the director of CBDC. He was a former employee at the England Central Bank, and he's very engaged with different use cases in CBDC. So he's helping, you know, not only our clients to think about how they can, you know, improve their pilots, their position in the pilots, but also to the Brazilian Central Bank to try to help them in different, you know, problems and smart contract structure. So we are trying to see if we can help somehow with our expertise.
Great. And then maybe just kind of walk us through and you also have Mercado Bitcoin, right? Which is under the 2TM umbrella, which is also, Mercado Bitcoin has its own consortium as well with I think MasterCard and a few other people. Still trying to remember. Like, there's so many people in these different companies in these consortiums.
Yeah, it's a big consortium. They ended. I think Mercado Bitcoin is the leader.
And so it looks like now we're actually getting. I think we've got about 3 of these consortiums that have actually spun up the nodes within the consortium, or within the pilot, I should say. And I'm just kind of curious as to your take on, like, what do you see? I realize you're not like necessarily the technical person who's like building these things out, but like just from you have sort of like the bird's eye view of all these different projects.
Right.
But what are you looking for as far as results wise, timetable wise, out of this project, of this pilot project? And what would, for your clients or the clients that Fireblocks is supporting within this project, what does success look like, basically?
Yes, I think so. They are actually, testing the functions that it's written there in the public calls for the pilot. So what I've heard is that it's everything going according to the timeline. So it's basically, having now for now, I think they already have the smart contract structure that needs to be the same within all the banks. So that guarantees the interoperability, right? So each bank, we're going to have like a different token in terms of it's going to represent a different tokenized deposit, but it needs to be the same structure. So I think that was the first challenge. And according to what I've heard, this challenge is being solved accordingly. And things that they are still dealing with is certain terms of, like, for privacy, to assure compliance with the Brazilian GDPR, the LGPD, right? Because the Brazilian Central Bank wants to be 100% sure that when this project goes out to the public, it's same structure, same views that they have in the physical normal world. So they cannot assess information that they don't need to assess, or they cannot assess according to our privacy rules, right? So I think that's one thing that firms within the consortiums are still working with Brazilian Central Bank to assure this level of privacy compliance. And that's where firms like Fireblocks and our partners can help with, right? To power and to streamline this. Try to, actually deliver the solutions that the problems present in the real tests. And I think in terms of, you want to go?
Oh yeah. So I was just going to chime in and say, this is kind of with your Nubank partnership announcement. It was the kind of the scope of work in the announcement was, okay, we're not only doing custody for Nubank, but we're also going to be providing various services related to Nubank's role in the digital real direct.
Yes, we are supporting them, whatever, in the pilot too.
Yeah, so it's basically a mix of, so it's a lot of these aren't, like, some of these services are custody, but some of these will be, like, what are some of the other types of areas, as far as that like a Nubank would like require Fireblocks for, specifically within the context of the digital real?
So I think as a relevant service provider for their tech, we will support all the infrastructure behind their VASP. So they will be able to offer trading and custody solutions to their clients. And our tech solutions will provide the infrastructure behind, so basically, empowering them to go, and then using our network. We have that more than, around 2,000 clients that using our network. So this also can help to mitigate counterparty risks and make faster transactions, so we are moving into like DVP and smart transfers within our network. So all this can help a lot, not only our clients, but also I think people that are interacting as counterparty into the system. And for the pilot itself, I think because we have this, mint and burn, software that helps all the tests, everything that's occurring into this testing framework to be, you know, easier and with like friendlier reports and things like that, and how you can control everything that is happening with governance layers before you enter actually into the blockchain. So I think it's basically, you know, helping and empowering our clients to be in a better position to offer their services to their clients.
Yeah, and I think part of this that's interesting is with this, when you look at the digital real, this foundation, this base layer that's being created, we still don't really know like what the actual kind of like end applications and products are going to be in a lot of these cases. Like we've got some, you know, we've got some like hackathons and things that are where people are trying to just like come up with use cases that you can build on the digital real. So a lot of these, it seems like there's a lot of fluidity right now, just in terms of like what services are actually going to be required. Or like what are the applications that are going to need to be supported using this tech? So I think it seems like a company like,
yeah, there's some kind of definitions into the main thing that they publish when they call for the institutions, which is like the use cases that are being tested. It's pretty defined actually. So the first is the wholesale CBDC, which is the central bank debt, and that's only restricted to banks to access it, and that's that's Brazilian Central Bank liability, right? And then there is the second case that is being tested, which is the tokenized deposit. So I, Nicole, you, Aaron, you put your money into the bank, and that's going to be tokenized and represent your deposit. And then there we can go from Itaú to Santander in this atomic transaction DVP. So I can, you know, sell my token, my deposit from tokenized deposit from Itaú to Santander in one transaction. So it's going to be more efficient, and it's being already tested in the pilot. Okay. And that there is the last use case that I don't think it's being tested right now. It's the last one. I think according to the timeline, it's going to be tested only in February next year, which is the tokenized federal bonds. Okay, so the treasury bonds from the government. So I can buy with digital money and buy this tokenized in one DVP, one atomic transaction. Okay, so this is actually 3 cases that it's going to be tested until the end of next year. And in terms of when we can expect to have something out of the pilot, I think it's also end of 2024. Okay,
got it.
Yeah, that's the expectation, to have this until the end of Roberto Campos Neto's mandate, to have something for the actual community and out of the pilot.
And do you think there's a risk here that if some of these projects end up being prolonged kind of past 2024 when Campos Neto's mandate expires, is there a risk that that like the next central bank president, you know, may not be as favorable to this sort of stuff and might, you know, devote resources elsewhere, or but obviously with the regulation, like this is obviously codified in law, and this is, you know, but I mean, how much of a risk do you think there is to, you know, with just this turnover within the central bank?
So I think unfortunately the risk exists. It's we have a very like independent staff and technical body, as we said. You know, there are a lot of people being involved in this project from a long time ago, even before the pilot was there, thinking about this. But at the end, it's up to, you know, the chairman has the final powers. So I don't even like to think about that, because, you know, kind of gives me anxiety to think about all this pilot could go away. Not like things can change, but I honestly wouldn't expect that, because I think there's a lot of people that are actually involved in this project in the bank. And I think that's something that puts the country in a very, you know, interesting position, you know, like global wise. So I think I think it would be a waste of everyone's time, and I wouldn't expect that.
And then we only have a couple minutes left here, so I just want to touch on one final subject, which is some of your work with some of these tokenization companies, specifically the QR Tokenizadora, and then also 2TM, which has its own kind of tokenization arm, I believe, under Mercado Bitcoin. But obviously, the over the last 3 months or so, there's been quite a bit of back and forth between the industry and the CVM on these fixed income tokens, and seems like there's a little bit of tension there as far as defining what's a security, what's not a security, and things of that nature. And I was just hoping you could kind of summarize maybe just what is sort of the point of contention here, and what is the pain point, and maybe how are you involved in these conversations?
Yeah, sure. So like since I would say a couple of maybe years or maybe months ago, we started to have this tokens being offered in the market, and they are fixed income tokens and future receivables tokens, and they were operating into a completely unregulated market, right? So they were being offered by some tokenization firms with certain level of publicity on that, and that calls CVM attention, right? So CVM started to see, and they also interacted with CVM, and so they first realized that could be an interaction with the securities market. It could be kind of a gray zone, and they consult CVM. CVM started to also consult with them. And in the beginning of April, we had the first staff letter, and it was from the Securitization Superintendency, SSE, the staff letter number 4 from beginning of April, saying that according to their interpretation of the Howey test and their analysis for this market, most of this, if there are certain things are being done, for instance, like being offered to the public, these tokens could be considered as fixed income, and futures receivable tokens could be considered securities. So put the market into a position that they could have been offering these tokens without CVM's authorization, where this could be required. So the association AB Crypto came into CVM and also firms independently to try to figure out the best way to comply, because CVM did appoint a path that they need to follow, for instance, to register as a crowdfunding platforms, and also do a type of securitization before putting these tokens into the crowdfunding platforms. So it could there will be certain procedures to be followed, okay? But it's not very easy for these firms to comply with. There's a lot of process and a lot of bureaucracy that they have to achieve. So most of them would need some time. Most of them would need other waivers from this crowdfunding regulations for them to be able to continue offering these tokens. So we are now into these discussions with CVM via association and independently, trying to come to a better term to be able to still offer this according to CVM staff demands. So a month after the first one, or 2 months, I think it was last month, staff SSE published another letter with some better some clarifications that the industry had questioned, and already I would say some waivers that it's already put in there for all the industry to be a little less burdensome. But still, it's ongoing conversation. So now what we have is mainly Big Crypto sent a big letter in the name of all the associate firms, the member firms, and this will be judged by the staff, and gonna be ruled out by the staff and by the CVM board. So we have to wait and see how it's gonna be next steps basically according to this. And also, you know, if any firm asks independent process, CVM will likely to reply independently to them.
Got it. Got it. So there's kind of been this back and forth of you know, the industry was just sort of issuing these tokens without any real clear, there's no real clear guidance or framework or anything. And then CVM comes and says, if you want to do this, like, you've got to do all these things, X, Y, Z. Then the industry comes back and says, if we have to do all these things, then that sort of negates any of like the efficiency gains, negates the entire point of issuing a token, negates any of the efficiency gains we might reap by doing this tokenization process to begin with. And then so there's kind of this like little tug of war essentially over.
Yes, exactly. There were one precedent before that. It was a rule making process, like was a case from Vasco da Gama, the football club, that some firms took into consideration to understand that would be not considered as securities. Okay, so they did had some kind of orientation that they would guide themselves to say that it wouldn't be a security, but CVM says that this case was a little different. So yeah, so you took the right thing. It's been a little discussion before with CVM between these firms to figure out the best way, because anyone, like, it's not interested for CVM. They didn't send a stop order. They didn't say, you know, you have to stop. They want this market to continue, but they want a market to continue in a more regulated, in a way that they think it's right according to the law.
Yeah, that's a good point. They're not sending out stop orders. They're not, like, you know, suing people. They're not, you know, they're not like they seem to be acting in pretty good faith, I guess, which is you know, a bit of a distinction from what we're seeing in other jurisdictions.
True.
So
yeah, I like to defend that, because, you know, it's if you talk to anyone involved into the process, they will say that, you know, we could have adopted a different posture here if we wanted to interrupt the market. So it's not that they think it's all illegal and it's all wrong. You know, they want to come to conclude, like, to a better terms, that it's like in one hand protecting the investor, how they think it should be, and the other hand protecting the market participants too.
Great. Well, thank you for explaining that. That's super helpful.
Sure.
And then I know we're out of time here, so just want to give you the mic for any final thoughts, and how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. So my networks are public: LinkedIn, Instagram, Nicole Dyskant, and I see Dyskant in Instagram. Super happy to address any questions you may have from this quick chat. And I think my final advice is stay tuned. We're gonna have pretty new things coming into the market from both regulators, self-regulators. We didn't have time to talk about Ambima's work next time, so I'm gonna come back inviting myself, Aaron. There's a lot of nice orientations and also work from the industry to help others. So just stay tuned to our networks. Aaron also did a very good job in keeping everyone's informed. So yeah.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for your time, Nikki. And thanks everyone for listening.
Sure. Thank you.